Welcome, one and all, to another Spark analysis. Today we're just gonna look at data. We're looking over the where the job's gone. So, recently things have been kind of gearing up and getting even worse. Between both, the fact that SNAP benefits aren't gonna be paid out next month, which is in 2 days, or after 2 days. And we have about 42 million people, or 12% of the population, that are gonna go without food. Now, when we look at this number, right, when we look at the 42 million and we compare that to, let's say, the amount of people that are unemployed throughout the year. So here I have a little bit of a listing. It's just easier to have Google friggin' find everything for me and list it out instead of showing all the graphs and everything else in the whole mess, but just to be a little bit more straightforward and consistent. So weekly initial jobless claims in 2025, the number's been rising, and that's been due partly to the layoffs. So let's just say out of that 42 million people that receive SNAP, currently we're sitting at about last stated was 7.384 million, or 7,384,000 people unemployed, being seasonally adjusted, so adjusted for seasonal positions as well. It's almost grown a whole million people unemployed that are probably still unemployed since January. Or, well, it's probably a revolving door, but still, it's growing unemployment. It's very obvious when you look at the numbers month by month. Obviously, we don't have numbers for September, October yet because, the government doesn't want to do its job. So, yeah, that's part of the problem. Plus, it's hard to even trust the data anymore with who's been appointed and all the changes in the administration that's been forced from. So now we have kind of those numbers, at least. Obviously, if you're unemployed, like unless you have a stockpile of money, you're probably going to need SNAP benefits. And at that point, you're getting the full SNAP benefit, which is going to be over the monthly average when we looked over the last video. And the monthly average currently, adjusted for inflation properly, too, mind you, is $188. And that's a month, okay, that people are getting on average. And most of these people, like, we have 42 million SNAP recipients, only 7 million of those are actually unemployed. So most of those people, right, 7, 14, 21, 20, it's kind of a small percentage of the people that are on SNAP benefits that are actually not working when you look at the numbers. And that's very, very interesting. The only thing about the data is I don't know if it adjusts for the elderly or disabled. Maybe it includes those, maybe it doesn't, but those are the same people that would be lumped into the SNAP recipients as well. So that's probably the only stipulation. But regardless, even with those considerations in regards to the population, they would obviously be included in the SNAP numbers, but they wouldn't make up, let's say, like 30 something million, like people. We don't have 30 something million disabled and elderly people that rely on SNAP per se. But that just doesn't necessarily make that much sense either, because even this is my personal experience. I know people that work and receive SNAP, but they're not receiving the whole average benefit. They're receiving less than that per month. And mind you, that they have to work as well, and they're not receiving Social Security typically. They're not receiving disabilities because they're working, they're able-bodied. They're not going to be able to claim those things unless if they're super old, and sure they claim Social Security, but then if they're working, that has to get mentioned during tax time, and taxes are probably due because you're working as well as claiming Social Security. And I don't know. That's the other thing, the whole tax system too, especially when it comes to health insurance, because I was hit before very hard for just having the Affordable Care Act health insurance and making like on the line when it comes to like the second or third bracket from the bottom. And I ended up having to owe taxes because I was on the Affordable Care Act health insurance, which it was like almost $2,000, and that was insane. It was absolutely insane. So, given these numbers, for one, I'm pretty sure we can safely say that people that are on SNAP and food stamps are not, you know, taking advantage of the system. Not lazy. It's not like they don't have a job when we compare the numbers. Second, with the amount of layoffs just this year alone, we're approaching 1 million. And this is between both the government sector being over 300,000, at least since September. Again, we don't know the more current numbers now because the government just refuses to do its job. And they refuse to help the people, they refuse to represent the people. And that's a whole other concern when it comes to, state legislatures as well as the federal, because then they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do about taxes. Because if there's no representation, then there should be no taxation, at least. That's the whole basis of America. But when we look at these increases in layoffs, as we've most recently seen, there's even more layoffs. The US plans to, that's cutting jobs in Germany, so it's not going to be reflected in our data. But when it comes to Amazon, which typically is housed in America, from as far as I know, about 14,000 jobs, as well as USPS, or well, I think it was UPS, if I'm not mistaken, one of them. They're also getting rid of another 10,000 jobs. So 14,000 corporate jobs in Amazon, and then losing more jobs all over the place. Just Meta, just all these companies, Best Buy, BlackRock, SquarePay, all these companies just cutting. And all these numbers are going to end up, if they're not transferred into another position, or if they don't have another job lined up from right off the bat, they're going to add to that total number of unemployed, which probably will end up being 1 million more than the beginning of the year. So that number is risen about 1/6 of what it was, right? Because we had 6 million, and 1/6 of 6 million is 1 million. It rises by 1 million, so it rises by about a sixth of what it was. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's almost 20% of unemployment added within 1 year. And this administration just started. And the reasons we can, debate over, but it's going to be over AI, for one. Two, it's going to be impacted by tariffs and inflation. So, because of the policies of this administration, with both, since they refuse to regulate AI in any sense, in fact, they're helping those that are creating AI systems. They're giving them money, they're giving them all this land for tax free. So, we went over prior when it comes to the farmlands. And mind you, we also have the refusal of paying out USA or SNAP, which is also going to further hurt these companies. And they're going to be forced to make hard decisions come, by the end of the next month, when we're going into December, going into Christmas time, as their monthly profits are going to shrink dramatically. They're going to shrink by a lot because, as we went over in one of the previous videos, Bye Bye Snap, the profits and the incomes for a lot of supermarkets and grocers, even places like Target, which is another company that's also laying a lot of people off as well, between the tariffs, between the inflation, which is because of the economic squeeze, the top percentage of earners are withholding money and liquidity and assets from the rest of the populace, from the system, and it's squeezing, which is causing inflation. It's causing prices to rise. There's less money available to the majority of the population. Their dollars also becoming worth less and less as we have international issues with trade, as our tariffs are reflecting badly, very badly, on any possible deals with other countries. It's reflecting poorly on all of our international relationships, which is further causing inflation. So it all ties back to what this administration's doing, and well, not doing as well, because they're not restricting AI. They're letting these people take over farmlands, and then that kind of leads into a little bit of a conspiracy. But at the same time, there's evidence, especially with the fact that when we look at the pandemic versus now, and the actions of the first Trump administration versus the actions of the Trump administration today, I mean, back then they had the government open until December at the very least. After it was supposed to shut down in October of 2018, kept it open with emergency funds until December, and then kept paying out SNAP benefits, Social Security, and everything else with emergency funds until February, March, until the funds literally almost ran out. Now we have emergency funds again. We have a few billion in emergency funds in order to at least pay out for a couple of months. But before November even hit, the administration just flat out refused. So you can kind of tell by, the actions that this administration is taking from then compared to now. We can reason and find out, and kind of figure out what their intent is. And when we look kind of down the rabbit hole in regards to where the SNAP benefits go, again, check out the previous video, it's going to affect grocers and its farmers disproportionately, because grocers and farmers, 12.5% at the very least of what their profits were, which is probably going to be disproportionately more because, I mean, people that have a lot of money are not typically food shopping and not buying a lot of food at groceries. They can afford to go out to eat. They can go anywhere. And I mean, for the restaurant industry, when it comes to farmers, they're already hit by inflation, and that's making it tough for them. But the fact that they're losing at the very least 12.25% of their profit, of their income, that's a huge hit. That's 1/8 of the money that they need to continue running. And just to put salt into the wound, we have what's going on with Argentina and the backdoor deal of 20 to 40 billion dollars being sent over there, and then the trade deal with meat farmers as well as soybean farmers. It just undermines farming. And funny enough, when farmers give up their land, it's getting sold to people that are making these data centers because they use the water, they irrigate the water from those lands in order to cool the systems. It just so happens that maybe there's something happening behind the scenes when it comes to the tech billionaires and the administration as well. It kind of makes sense too when you see how closely related they are and how closely tied, how many times that we see these billionaires go to Mar-a-Lago for dinners and everything else, there's a lot of pandering when it comes to these billionaires, and it's obviously to keep the money within the 1%, within the people. It squeezes the population in so many ways, because if you hurt farmers, you're then hurting the Americans. We're having to import food, and when we import food, it takes longer for it to come here. It has a higher risk of being spoiled by the time it gets here. It's not as healthy and, good for the population if we're subject to possibly having a higher risk of just buying spoiled food. It's just worse for the society in general. And now when we look at unemployment, we look at, the risk of SNAP benefits, and again, we don't have numbers for the layoffs that are at least since September and October. Now, when we look at the fact that we're almost at 1 million layoffs up until September, well, August, and we look at how many jobs were added. So this was revenue, total new jobs. I mean, I don't think we've even added 1 million jobs this year. Not even close. So the amount of unemployment recipients by month is staying elevated and is in fact raising, because there's not enough jobs available for people that are unemployed, depending on their skill set too, to be able to find a new job. I mean, August 2025 is only 22,000 new jobs. We're at a point where we're between the layoffs and the fact that no new jobs are being added and being replaced by AI and just cuts in the industry in general to really squeeze out more profits. It's just suffocating the middle and lower class to a point that, I mean, they're going to be suffering. It's bad, and that's why I cover these things. Because it's all related. It's all tied into the same market. I mean, the market might look great because that's where people are hiding a lot of the money. They trust that they can hide their money and it's going to grow because the profits that they're manipulating, that they're pulling, even with these terrible layoffs, the lack of jobs being introduced into the market, because a lot of the jobs, if they're not introduced, then they're probably already filled. especially as, I don't know, people are increasingly becoming unemployed. And then we also got to look at corporate revenue 2025. And we see that, I mean, this is crazy. In 2025, total corporate revenue in the US is estimated to be 52.9 trillion for 2000 largest companies on the Forbes Global 2000 list. That is almost double the amount of debt that the United States is in. This is only for 1 year, right? The amount of debt that the US has been over a few decades that's been built up. Within 1 year, 2000 companies profited, or well, revenue, $52.9 trillion. And they're not putting it back into the system. So it's wild to see. And when we go quarter by quarter, when we compare 2019, what happened then, I mean, they were still hitting record profits. In fact, I mean, profits remained relatively stable as a share of national income throughout the 2010-2019 period. 2019 was when COVID hit. It was baseline pre-pandemic level. And then since, you know, like not even like 10 years ago, like 6 years ago, it's almost, I mean, it's at least risen by a quarter, right? Almost doubled profits in 2024. 2025, I mean, by quarter, is taken slight. Quarter four, 2024. I mean, Christmas time, you're typically going to see the most anyways. 2025, slight hit, first quarterly decline. Probably because, I mean, tariffs started to get implemented as well. We didn't really, I mean, we saw it on and off. They were affecting at least revenue. They were affecting consumer confidence. People weren't shopping as much. So obviously this is going to get hit almost $1 trillion, to be fair. Almost $1 trillion. But it's growing back. Quarter two is 3.26 trillion. So I'm sure by quarter three, which we're not going to have really any data for a while until the government decides to reopen, in quarter four, which will probably be back up to 4 trillion again. If people have enough money to spend. That's the other thing too. So it's just looking bad. It's looking bad. It's looking absolutely horrible. And as the layoffs get worse, as more and more people, I mean, need to rely on SNAP, they need to. If you're laid off and unemployed, you can try to rely on unemployment for, paying rent, paying your car, paying for what you need for the family, but you're still gonna need to buy food. And I mean, with the average payout being probably 188, even if it was like 200, almost $250 a month, that's per month. That's still not a lot. You can spend that by like the first 2 weeks within the month with how food prices are, especially if you have a bigger family. I don't know, but it's just sad to see. And mind you, I mean, well, there's no SNAP benefits being paid out, so those people, especially the newer layoffs, are not getting that. And it's hurting itself too, because if we're not getting that money reintroduced back through the grocer to the farmers, then those grocery stores that pay minimum wage, that give a lot of the workers bare minimum for the most part, those same people, as we just looked over, I mean, a difference of about 30, what was it? We got 42 million minus 7, so yeah, 35 million people are working. And I'm sure a large percentage of those people work in retail because they have to get paid a low amount in order to even qualify for SNAP. And where do people get paid low amounts of money? Retail. And what's also getting disproportionately affected by the tariffs, as well as the loss of SNAP revenue? Retail. What is retail going to have to do if they want to keep their profit margins looking nice and spiffy? Or they're going to have to cut hours, or they're going to have to figure something out. Because, I mean, I'm sure when December hits, if this shutdown lasts that long, which it may or may not, who knows? Because there's no negotiations, there's no honestly real hopeful outlook on any of this. There's no negotiating anyways, because I mean, the negotiations is for something that is a non-issue, something that doesn't even exist in the first place. Because illegal immigrants do not get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. Not not even like that. Like, you can't. You need a social security number. And if you don't have a social security number because you're an illegal immigrant, then you're not getting it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That just doesn't work like that. You can't just have the health insurance without your ID and social security number through the Affordable Care Act. And so most of these individuals that are illegals just don't have health insurance. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are citizens that can't afford health insurance at this point. I'm one of them. I don't have health insurance because I can't afford it. And now I definitely can't afford it. I couldn't afford it before this whole ordeal happened. Now I definitely can't afford it. And I work 2 jobs, not including this. I don't even get paid from this. So it's tough to see. And I mean, I personally feel it. I feel it bad. And at least want to inform you that things are not looking great. I'm sure within the next month, we're going to have a huge squeeze. A lot of food programs are going to be squeezed very hard. Very hard. And it's just sad to see the state of things. And people are going to have to really live off the bare minimum if they can even afford it. Mind you, as inflation is just continually going up, continually spiking, it's getting worse. Prices are still going up. And mind you, behind all of this, when it comes to the OBBB SNAP cuts. Oh. Well, besides the fact that they're changing, I mean, I'll just go straight out the horse's mouth. Now voted 12 times. Oh, nice update. So let's see if we can find it in here. Reevaluation of thrifty food plan, modifications of SNAP work requirements, availability of standard allowances, restrictions on internet expenses. Oh wow, they're really cutting. Matching funds requirements, administrative cost sharing. Yeah, cutting. Obesity prevention grant program, alien SNAP eligibility. So, alien SNAP eligibility, I mean, illegals don't get that. To non-citizen eligibility for SNAP, further guidance is forthcoming. I mean, with the immigration policy, or well, lack thereof at this point, when it comes to the United States, even if people have seeked asylum, trying to do this through the legal means, they're still getting deported. They're still getting strongmanned out of the courtrooms. Like, literally, they're getting disappeared from their court hearings, even if the hearing is still ongoing. It doesn't matter if they're doing it the legal way or not. It doesn't matter if they're a criminal or not. I mean, the numbers clearly show that when it comes to who's being detained and who's being disappeared or deported. So we can't even, I mean, even if it's someone that's going through the process that is trying to get their green card, that is in the court system legally, and they have a temporary social, sure. I mean, how else are they going to survive if they can't really get a good job? If minimum wage, again, we just looked at, only about 7.25 million people are unemployed, like actually unemployed. And that's, you take that out of the 42 million people that receive SNAP benefits. Again, we have 35 million people that are working that still need SNAP benefits. So what do you think is going to happen to someone that is just trying to come into this country that is working a retail job just like everyone else? They're going to need to pay for food, especially if they have a family of more than, well, themselves. If they have a family, like, it's insane. It's insane. It's just pure cruelty and ignorance, especially when you just look at the numbers. But what I was trying to look at before Google decided, oh, SNAP benefits, SNAP budget cuts. So that's interesting that I can't find it even though it's on there. I know the big beautiful bill when it comes to the budget cuts in terms of Snap. Uh, restrictions on internet costs. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing too. It's like you need a cell phone, you need internet in order to do some jobs, to work a lot of jobs, especially when they're in the data tech field. And if that's not being included as, if you need or to get a job, because everything, I mean, these days is through the internet, you're really just fucked. It's more suppression. It is genuinely more ignorant suppression. Um, and if you receive low-income home energy assistance, then that's also going to reflect negatively toward your SNAP benefits. Wow, I didn't even know how bad this was. Administrative cost sharing, I know they're changing. Yep. So the federal involvement is only going to be 25%, whereas the state's burden is going to be 75%, which is going to be a big strain. I mean, on a lot of states. And oddly enough, when we look at, who receives federal funding by state and where the federal funding comes from by state, I mean, blue states offer way more federal funding than red states do, and a lot of that funding from the blue states goes to red states for programs like this. So it's squeezing the red states, ironically enough, disproportionately, because I mean the blue states are going to have to take a lot of that money and reuse it back into their communities. They have larger populations. They disproportionately will have more SNAP recipients, more people on welfare and food stamps and etc. than red states, just because of the difference in population. But per capita, when you look at red states, more people in red states rely on SNAP and affordable healthcare and everything else compared to blue states. There's more opportunities in blue states, in cities. That's kind of the stereotype too when you look at movies and everything else, and you see that. So it's a big squeeze, and that's what I call it, is a big squeeze. It's insane that I was able to find it the other day by typing in that prompt, and now I can't find it. But I mean, in the comments you can correct me if I'm wrong. From what I saw in the one big beautiful bill, they within 10 years they wanted to cut 187 billion from the SNAP benefits. When we look at what we went over in the last video, SNAP benefits as of this year, or the expenditure, was expected to be $100 billion. And since 2019, when we analyzed it, that was from 60 billion, or about 60 something, $62 billion. So it's risen about almost 40%. But that correctly follows inflation since the pandemic, since 2019, of 30%. So there's been proper budgeting from then till now in order to pay people, from 120 on average a month, and this is a month, not a week, $100 for food for the month, compared to now $188 a month for food. And that's a 30% rise following inflation. We did the calculations last video. And now they want to cut about 16 billion from that budget every year. So you're cutting about 15% of that inflation out, which is it's going to have to squeeze the allowance at that point. And that means the allowance is going to have to go down by 15%. That means people are going to see a loss of about 15, maybe even 20% year by year when it comes to SNAP benefits, no matter what inflation is. And mind you, we just went over inflation's raging. So again, it's the big squeeze. It's a big hug that's trying to suffocate you until you're dead. That's as simple as I can put it. And it's being facilitated by this administration in so many ways, between tariffs, I mean, the freedom for AI to literally buy off land and build these giant data centers, while also simultaneously squeezing farmers out of their land so these tech billionaires have more land to buy. It's insane. So go check out previous videos on the channel going over this. This is Spark saying, Jesus Christ, this is awful. Oh, and best viewers, go F yourself. I hate these bots, man. These absolute bots. Can I even ban you? Ah, whatever. Anyways, until next time, this is Spark saying peace.